Alright. Welcome back to Lenz Doctor Who Review, episode number 79. I'm reviewing what is considered to be the worst story serial of the classic Doctor Who era. A story that I kind of liked. I did not have an issue with this at all. A lot of people have pointed out this is probably what this is, the thing is garbage. Like, thing is so bad. We have two twins who are considered to be the show's version was the Crusher. Yeah, some people might know what I'm talking about. It's the opening story for the Sixth Doctor, The Twin Dilemma, released in March 22nd to March 30th of 1984. Now, you're thinking, wait, that's over the course of weeks. Well, from what I've read, this was the very last story to do that. Release 2 episodes in 1 week. Yeah, this was the last time the classic Doctor Who did this for quite a while. I think the last time for the classic era. Now, this story is also the final story of the 21st season show. Yes, like I mentioned. Now, one of the things this is known for is the debut of the Sixth Doctor's outfit. Here's a picture of it right here. Yes, this thing, which Perry describes as yuck. Like, people describe him look like a clown. The coat looks awful. From what I heard, the cat lapel he wears is painted. The thing is painted like that. Yes. And thing starts off, like, not long after the 5th is really the 6th, where he still got the messed up coat, the 5th Doctor's coat that he had. So, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I'm the Doctor, change his face. This technically is his first story. And then, of course, he changes the tire, where we see in the actual thing, we see Alf stuff belonging to various different characters in Doctor Who. Like, in the wardrobe room, which is a common room seen in Doctor Who, we see an outfit worn by the second Doctor, his trousers, suspenders, and fur coat. We see the third Doctor's velvet jacket and basically two Doctor's outfits here. We see Tegan. She gets mentioned. At one point, we actually have Perry actually called Tegan the episode. Yeah. Which, by the time the story came out, this had only been like 3 stories since his departure for the show. And we're still bringing up Tegan because Tegan was... Well, she made a cameo in the last story came as she was mentioned in Planet of Fire. So this is probably a way of the show remembering Tegan. So yeah, and of course, Sixth Doctor had this thing where he would occasionally call Perry by the wrong name. The names being of previous companions in the show. He would do this. This is a minor gag in the show. He's also been unstable. He keeps changing his mind. Wants to go. By the end of the story, he's stable. Well, that's ignored by the next story, with him being stable in the head. Yeah, apparently, this was not a very popular thing. Now, he, of course, puts on his outfit, and then, of course, Perry puts on an outfit that people did see her put on. And she wears I think she wears his outfit for, and remember, I think she wears for most of the remainder. I would say for a lot of the time during the very next season of the show, season 22, which is the first and only season of classic Doctor Who where the episodes are 45 minutes compared to the usual 25-minute format of these things. Yep. So, yeah, so we have to have the change, and then pretty much basically where apparently reveal her full name is Parmagilia, which all things relate to fairies, and then the Sixth Doctor tries to strangle Perry, and then show his face again, which is the second time he does in the story. Now, this has been criticized like crazy over the years. People hate this scene. The Doctor murders one of his own companions. Anybody thinking, wait, that was suicide. This was basically strangulation, and it's mentioned a few times afterwards in this very story, but the strangulation is never mentioned again because Perry has no problem traveling with the Doctor. Yep. And then, of course, basically they arrive at the planet. It'll be a hermit on Titan 3, a freaking asteroid. But meanwhile, before I continue here, we have to talk about the two twins, Romulus and Remus. Which, from what I've read, these two were supposed to be originally planned to be girls, but apparently, for the terms of the story, they had to be boys. Yeah, this was really weird. They mentioned their mother is missing. They apparently don't respect her because she's not there. The father apparently is a war respect professor, and then apparently he's gone. Don't know where he's going. They basically do equations because they're geniuses. And then they're kidnapped by another person, alien. Well, this character is someone who the Doctor knows. And he temporarily wipes their memories, and he takes them away. And, of course, then the father arrives home. And, of course, he had been gone for 2 hours. Yeah, gone for 2 hours. Contacts the police like a sensible parent would do. And apparently because these two kids are child prodigies and the fact their father is a very important political figure, apparently, first priority, let's go search for those kids and send like one person in a squad and have the whole squad get killed by the main villain of the story, who's a freaking slug. Yes, seriously. The costume of this guy looks freaking awful. It looks like a giant bug. Like, what the heck is this? Like, this is your main villain. A slug monster. Yeah, and then of course they arrive, and then of course basically like they arrive at the ship they're on. Perry and the doctor goes look, oh, it's radiation. Like, it doesn't matter about radiation. And here's the strange thing though, on the screen it looks like it's dark outside, but when they go outside it's light time. This I thought was really weird. I think this was a continuity goof on the. This is basically a production error on the part of the people who wrote the story. And they go into the shelter, and there's an intruder. Goes to find him, and then of course you have the doctor hiding behind Perry, which from what I heard, when he was behind her, he proceeded to bite her on the butt, and she liked it. And then when their crew representatives, who actually, there's this guy called Hugo, which he's played by. Oh, what's his actor's name? Hugo. He's played by Kevin McNeely. And I didn't realize this. Because, like, the name sounds very familiar. Like, oh, crap. This guy was actually in a recent Doctor Who story. Yes, they brought back this actor to play a professor in the storyline Flux. The last known season that was released, that miniseries for the 13th Doctor. Her third season of the show, Flux. And he was a recurring character on it, like, wow. Oh yeah, and here's the strange thing though, apparently. So, Kevin apparently developed feelings for Perry. He tells her years later that he was a crush on her. And apparently she knew that Kevin had a thing for her on the show. And of course, here's something they brought up in the last story. Characters bring up the fact Perry's hot. Which, yeah, there's no other thing. Nicole O'Brien was very beautiful and a very attractive woman at that point in time. So, no denying that. No problem with that at all. But this also happened in the last story too. Like, here's the strange thing though. Did it bring us up with the fact Tegan was very attractive at that very period of time? Or Nyssa? Yeah, know about the fact that, hey, we have the Doctor talking with two very beautiful women. And yet, Perry is the one who basically gets all notoriety because, yeah, she was beautiful. Fine. So were her previous predecessors as ladies in the show. And Perry, believe it or not, here's the sad thing about her that I have to mention here. She's the third to last companion on the show. Yes, third to last because the person who placed her was only there for the last two stories for Sixth Doctor, and then she was there for the first season of the very next Doctor, and then she got placed the final companion of the show. Isn't that weird that Perry is the third to last companion? Yes. So, yeah. So he realized his old friend. Of course, mentions recognizes, and he mentions something about the fact they used to drink together. Like, oh, now I recognize him. And he mentions later, yeah, he did remember that. And then, of course, they proceed to leave. The professor and the two boys. And one of the guys there proceeds to the safe house on self-destruct, which he goes back to the main villain's palace. And apparently he's a Time Lord who was, I read a lot, he's a renegade Time Lord. Apparently he was also first Chancellor as well at some point. And he left Gallifrey and he was a ruler of his own planet. I'm like, since when do Time Lords, if they're not the Master, take over a whole planet and become benevolent rulers? I have never, this is the first and only time this ever happened. And by the way, this guy was actually first mentioned in the Time Monster. Yes. If you're curious about Time Monster, that was, I think it was Time Monster, wasn't it? This guy was first mentioned. Yeah, it was actually, Time Monsters, I believe, was it was a story from the Third Doctor's era. Yep, I have not reviewed this one yet, but yeah. So, this guy was a 13th and final iteration of this character. By the way, he's called the Hermit. Which, from what I can tell, it's implied that this guy here is the same guy who may have popped up in a previous story. Because I remember this guy did pop up in one. Yeah, I was right. This is the same character. Just basically a reincarnation of, just a regeneration of this character who becomes Asmiel. Yeah. Yeah, this guy also appeared in Planet of Spiders. So I knew this guy was familiar. Yeah, initially recognized because the face was different, but yeah. So then they reveal the guy's plan. What is the plan? Why did he kidnap the boys? Here's the plan. They want to move these two planets in this solar system to basically take the time space of the main planet. But Dr. Keller is like, okay, you forgot one thing. What's that? The sun. So, and then reveal what the dastardly plan of the villain is. He wants to spread his slugs all over the universe. And I was like, nope. So, Azazel basically just takes control of the guys. He tries to transfer himself into the Doctor's mind, but his teacher takes over for him. And of course, Dr. P destroys his body with a chemical. And then his teacher dies. Then Hugo, by the way, where he basically changed attire, where he wore this blue shirt, and they wore this flamboyant outfit. Yeah, and by the way, he's actually found by the Doctor, and the Doctor is very reluctant to save him. Yeah, this is during a time where he's not really stable. And then eventually he just is told to do his job properly. Like, other doctors have no problem helping people. Apparently he was not really interested in doing that at all. So, he heals them, he's perfectly fine. Yeah, and apparently his blue shirt he wears, he apparently ditches the outfit, he keeps his gun, his tiny purple gun, which I was looking at like, that looks like a glue gun. Yes, seriously. They use glue guns as guns in this episode. I'm like, what the heck is this? I get the fact it's the future, but why the heck are you using freaking glue guns? This makes no freaking sense. It's basically a retrofitted glue gun. The size is exactly the same. I know because I've used a glue gun. So, all said and done, basically the guy gets, taken out. A teacher dies. He passes along his ring to the Doctor. Doctor passes along Hugo. He takes over leadership of the world. And, of course, Doctor takes back Romulus and Remus, presumably back to Earth. And then, of course, Perry, tells Perry that he has, how should I put this? He says this. He tells Perry, I'm the Doctor, whether you like it or not. That's probably his way of saying, I'm sticking around because basically I say so. Could be. I don't have a really big problem with this story like other people do. People hate this story. People think this story is just trash and I consider it guilty pleasure. And by the way, this whole scene of him doing this, where he's like thinking, where he just like, it's like, you could definitely say that the Doctor is showing off. When you see this, they're like, yeah, I'm awesome, even though that some people are like, no, you're not. Which I thought that was so funny. The fact they mention a hermit, and of course they run into a hermit, a teacher, the Doctor. Yeah, I do think this story is unintentionally hilarious. Yeah, but then the very next story, like, okay, so who does the Sixth Doctor take on for his second story? He takes on the freaking Cyberman. I'll talk about the next video, which is a lot better story than this is, but it's a guilty pleasure of mine. But it's hilarious. It's just funny. What rating do I give Twin Dilemma? I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10, and that's being fair for a story I consider guilty pleasure. Okay, so that's a particular review. Next up is basically for Baruto, and then a Comic Corner, and then I'll do Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, next video. Bye.